Oh, it's Thursday, and you know what that means. That means it's time to ignite the dynamite. The day after the dynamite, right here on Day After Dynamite, and I am Will Washington. Welcome to another edition of Day After Dynamite. Sorry, I'm out of breath. Right as the theme song was starting, which, as you know, it's a very short theme song, I was like, you know what? I need some light in here. And so I ran and turned on the lights and ran back to my desk. And it was literally, I literally got in my seat right as the theme song ended. But again, I'm Will Washington. I'm not alone here, though. True story, folks. Those of you that have been following me a long time already know this. Those of you that haven't are going to hear this again. For 16 years, I used to host a little show called RBR Weekly Wrestling Talk. Hosted it for 16 years. There are very few things I've done in my life that long. I've only been married 13 years, right? Actually, I've been married 11 years, but I've been in that relationship 13 years. Did that show a really long time. I left that show over a year ago, and I was part of a quartet known as the Fatal Four. The Fatal Four retooled itself over time because I left, Eric left, Maxwell left, and even the guys I hosted with before, Matt Galloway's left that show, and pretty much it's always been an ever-evolving cycle of making the quartet complete. After I left, the show rebuilt. Cody had joined right before I left, and right after, B-Rob had joined. I'd done plenty with B-Rob, but the one person who officially joined the Fatal Four around the end of my time there, somebody that I've never really formally gotten to host a full-on podcast with. We did the year-end awards last year. You weren't officially a part of the show at that point, I don't think. No. But otherwise, person who I guess you can kind of say took my place on RBR Weekly Wrestling Talk is one Noah Stewart, my guest today, somebody that I've never actually gotten to do this with and barely even fucking know. But hey, Noah, thanks for being here on Day After Dynamite.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Glad to, keep the RBR torch burning over there. And I'm excited to talk to you and the fellow fans out there.
Well, thank you for being here. Again, I think for the long-time RBR people, it's probably a blast of two different time periods, hearing my voice and your voice, and it's they know all of the idiosyncrasies of myself, and they know yours as well, but together to see those is probably a treat for some people, so that's kind of cool. So thank you for being here, Noah. It's been an interesting week. We got some interesting news out of AEW. I won't say this was a groundbreaking week the way weeks have been in the past, but we got some kind of cool
interesting
stuff.
Tidbits. Yeah, some yes. Fascinating little things.
Okay, I have to know though. Again, I left RBR a long time ago, so you were kind of explaining it to me before the show, but gas station garbage man was only mildly explained to me.
It's not that complicated. It's so I've started a new segment at the beginning of each RBR podcast during just our beginning prattle that's 20 to 30 minutes before we actually start talking about wrestling, where I present a food item that I found at a gas station. Just because I go to a gas station almost every day. I'll get an icy or something. I don't know. I just like eating garbage at the gas station. And I'll just pick something that I haven't tried yet, and I'll eat it live on the air. Last week it was a lot of Halloween themed snacks, like orange iced Hostess cupcakes or whatever. Last night I actually grabbed, it was at the gas stations they have items that are meant for people that are on their way to a party, and it's something they can drink real quick to pregame before they get to the actual party.
Oh yeah, sure.
I grabbed something. It was called a Beat Box, and it came in a cardboard container you would get coconut water or something. But it was 11.4 ABV, and I was definitely feeling it by the end of the podcast. It's not always alcohol based. That very rarely is it alcohol based, but last night it was.
I think I've mildly heard about that. I saw some feedback. Speaking of I don't even know how to transition that. It's we have our weekly cameo from Mr. Jeremy Lambert. Jeremy.
Will Washington!
There he goes.
How are you, Will Washington?
I'm doing pretty okay, actually. It's Thursday. It's an Ask Grapsity Day, which I was about to promote. But yeah, it's a fascinating day, and I'll leave it at that for now. How are you,
I'm
Jeremy?
well. Noah, nice to meet you on
Yeah, nice
here
to
on the
meet you too.
interweb, the forbidden door of media. Will Washington, always connecting people. You can promote Ask Grapsody, Will, which is 5 o'clock on Fightful Select, by mentioning that Phil Lindsay of Grapsody was on the spotlight today talking about how he gets himself in trouble when he is on Fightful Select.
I mean, look, Paywall Phil is a real thing. If you are not subscribed to Fightful Select and you've never seen Ask Grapsity, you have to. Look, I will say that I love Grapsity, and part of what I love about Grapsity is it's a show where I can be, I would say, 90% of my most authentic self. And I love that. And I love getting to be myself with my guys. And the reason I say 90% is because that other additional 9%, there's 1% I still can't be, just period. But the additional 9% happens on Ask Grapsity, where we just get to turn up a little bit, and it's fun. And if you,
so we have Paywall Will as well, then.
I mean, in general, I'd say we're a lot less filtered on Ask Grapsity for sure. And if you've never checked it out, again, FightfulSelect.com. That's coming up at 5 p.m. Eastern. Be there for Ask Grapsity. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it always is. So I didn't hear Phil this week on the Spotlight. So
you should watch the product, Will Washington.
Look, man, do you know what I'm doing when I get that notification that the Spotlight is on? You want to know what I'm doing?
Sleeping like a normal person.
No, I'm usually cooking my children breakfast.
It's what, 7:30 for you? 2 hours behind? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm up at 6 dealing with the kids here, getting them breakfast, getting them ready for school. So we know the dad life, Will. It's early mornings.
So what
early
I'm
mornings.
usually doing at that point, I always get that notification. I have to have Billy to school by 7:45, and so I'm usually scrambling to I actually wasn't intending for a pun there, but scrambling to make him eggs and pancakes and things along those lines, and then I get him out the door, and then I usually look down at my phone and I'm like, oh, Spotlight's on. So one of these days I will actually catch the Spotlight, but in the meantime,
nobody watches it. It's fine. We're just there popping ourselves, talking to our friends, talking about MLW running shows from 18 months ago. It's fine.
Well,
we did real quickly. I won't keep you guys too long. We did talk about a Spotlight Grapsody crossover because you guys are big Power Ranger fans. We're big Power Ranger fans. We feel like we need to do Power Ranger crossover episode.
People keep asking for a Power Ranger tier list. People keep asking me for anything. They want a Power Ranger podcast from me. And at some point I probably could pull that off because you get me started, I will eventually go. By the way, for anybody who's ever asked, that is right there. That's a Lord Zed right over my shoulder. And then right there, that is a dragon. That's a Dragon Zord right there. So I can go. When it comes to Power Rangers, I could do a tier list. I can do all that shit. But in the meantime, you just have to wait and see. Thank you for stopping by, Jeremy Lambert.
I mean, I just pop in whether I'm invited or not. I just see myself in, see myself out. Y'all have a great show. Noah, nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Enjoy hanging out with Will Washington some more, reuniting. By the way, shout out to, sorry, I'm just keeping myself here. Shout out to Maxwell, who you guys used to do the show with, RBR. I thought we still interact a little bit on Twitter, but he did my show very, very long ago talking basketball, and get him on this show, Will Washington, so I can say hi to him again, because he probably has no idea, no remembrance that he did this show with me legit 10 years ago talking basketball.
I will ask Maxwell I'll get him on the calendar, actually. I have to see if he even has the availability. But yes. No, I should get Maxwell on the show. That would be fun. But thank you, Jeremy.
Bye, guys. Bye, everybody in the chat. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Okay. Well.
Beautiful.
folks, I also want to hear from you guys. And the way we can hear from you guys, there's a couple of ways. We definitely want you to donate a super chat. It helps support what we do here. Because we got a super chat here from Orion Ben 666. He says, back in the chat, dad riding without a license. I can't believe Stokely Hathaway got away with that.
I know. Twice. He said it like 2 or 3 times.
I know, right? And it had a pre-taped promo, so it's not like one of those things where, oh shit, he said that. Well, it's already said. It's like, no, this was like in almost scripted fashion.
It had to go through some channels.
It had to go through some channels. Send us your super chats, though, youtube.com/Fightful. And then also, you can send us your Humper Chats, humperchats.com. Of course, they don't take as big of a cut as YouTube. That's our Streamlabs solution. And the cool thing about those is you can send them at any time. Just if you're sending them outside of show hours, make sure you're identifying what show those are for. But again, Streamlabs is where that hosts our Humper Chats. So again, humperchats.com. Again, those help support what we do. Anything you want to say to get your words here on the show, we're going to read those as the show goes on. But again, like I said, FightfulSelect.com, there's a lot of reports coming out. I had a little bit of a report this week on MJF's promo. Sean had noted in this week's Fightful Select update that I had gotten a little bit of wind before things had happened, actually, that he was not at Dynamite, but I was told before the show that he had an excellent promo that was going to air, that he did it in one take, and when it runs, everybody's going to be talking about it. And sure enough, it
delivered.
Yeah, it did deliver. So I was really happy to see that. And what other details came out of the show? Of course, the big story out of the show, which we thought it was going to be the big story last week, but then there was some scheduling things that happened, and we instead learned that Saraya is cleared to wrestle as of literally, I guess, 10 days ago? Literally 10 days ago was when, of course, it's the 10th. Why wasn't I thinking that? But she revealed on the sessions with Renee Paquette that she was officially 100% cleared, good to go on Halloween. And being cleared on Halloween, she was told she needs to start by wrestling about once a month. I don't know if this is an exciting time, is it not, Noah?
Yeah, so I am not the most familiar with Saraya's work because, and I've told you this, but I did not grow up with professional wrestling. I started becoming a fan in 2012 through 2014. Then I fell off for over 6 years or something until AEW hit TV, and then I got really into it, back into it in a heavy way. And started watching
you
WWE
podcast
again
about
and
it.
stuff.
Go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But between that time is when Saraya really, that was the peak of her career. Mm-hmm. So I have the most that I knew about her was that she used to wrestle, was very good, and then got injured in a big way, and mostly did talk show stuff at WWE. Right. So I am not the most familiar with her wrestling. So it'll be interesting to see that finally on TV.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm curious as to what exactly she's going to do.
Yeah,
and how much of it we're going to see. I mean, she's in the ring. She's gonna be having a match that's confirmed now, and we'll talk about the segment in just a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of people who didn't get to see what she brought to the table. And a big part of it is because her run was kind of short. She, of course, debuted on the main roster, and I'm specifically talking main roster. Obviously, NXT had its niche following online, but a lot of people didn't get to see what she did there. And as far as the big stage was concerned, she debuted on Raw 2014, and then she was out of action she was there for that for most of 2014, and then she was a part of when the women's evolution started in 2015 when Becky was called up, Sasha was called up, and Charlotte was called up. And then, of course, 2016 rolled around. She was off TV for a long time. And between having an injury and then on top of that, there were some other issues as related to her relationship and drug issues and things along those lines, stuff that she touched on last night.
Yeah.
And then she returned in what year was that? Was that 2017 where she returned with Absolution? And then and she was a part of a faction with Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. And then she got injured. And that was the permanent injury. That was where it all basically stopped for her. And then in 2018, she became the general manager of SmackDown. But so, like, there's very little actual in-ring stuff here. Like, the stuff people really saw from her was really that year, that 2014, 2015 year. But beyond that, she never really got to do much because it just felt like it stopped. And so... to see
people generally see that her stuff that she did in that very short amount of time as being very good, right?
Yeah. Well, especially like the feud with AJ Lee is one that people really look at that she had in 2014. Because she, of course, the thing that Paige as a character was famous for was that she came in, she won the Divas title on her first night on Raw. It was an open challenge that AJ Lee had opened up. Paige's music hits. They're like, oh, that's Paige from NXT. And she comes in and immediately defeats AJ Lee for the women's title, or for the Divas title. And then she kind of struggled to get over after that. And so they did the smart thing, which was AJ Lee left TV to go get married and take some time off. And while she was gone, with Paige struggling to get over and really getting some crummy reactions, they decided, hey, what if they did a reverse of the angle. Paige was the Divas champion. She does a call out of, open challenge. AJ Lee returns from her time off and comes in and beats Paige immediately. And
weird.
And so that was the double turn. That was AJ returns. She's a babyface now. And then Paige ends up angry about what just happened. And Paige turns heel. And so that was, and I say all that to say that based on the way things went last night, if they decide, I can see AEW deciding probably quickly that Paige may be better served as a heel if things don't go strongly. Because I say it all the time. The thing that AEW fans really like to stick to is their homers. And I feel like that Newark crowd is probably going to cheer Brit. And I think that may not go in Saraya's favor, but that's okay. She's been in that situation before.
Yeah.
And turning her has worked out for her. She's been a pretty strong heel.
And also just the things that she's been saying in her promos, whether intentional or not, have kind of seemed like it could go either way. Like that she's being aggressive towards AEW in a way that seems like it could be heelish, but she's also like, rallying up the crowd and, playing for sympathy and being a babyface too. So it could really go either way.
Agreed. I want to read a super chat. And by super chat, I mean Humper Check. So I want to give definite credit to where this was actually donated. This one came from Dana. This one says, give me a second. I'm actually trying to pull it up. There we go. Dana says, for Dad, huge fan of the show. Dad is my favorite post-Dynamite review show. Thank you. Nice. I very much appreciate that. Says, do you think we're getting a Brian Cage versus Ethan Page tournament final? After the angle with Lance Archer, I wonder if that was a write-off for Starks. I don't know if it was a write-off for Starks or if it was trying to stretch the tournament out to fill next week's Dynamite and Rampage, because they're both live next week. And I think that...
I really hope so. I really hope that this is like an obstacle that Starks has to overcome.
Yeah, because I'm wondering...
instead of him being written off.
I'm wondering if they realized that the Starks match needed to be moved to Dynamite next week, and then you do the two semifinals on next week's Rampage, and then we're done. basically at that point. And then the final, of course. I think that's my gut feeling, is that they just realized things needed to be moved to fill up next week's Dynamite, and then you have 2 matches on Rampage next week.
Yeah.
Because they're both live, and you've got to sell those Rampage tickets. Because, again,
Right.
I think it's a mistake not filling up those Rampage cards the way because the last few weeks of Rampage have been live, and it's been kind of a pain to watch, like what they did at Daly's Place, where it was live in front of a crowd that hadn't had Dynamite or AEW in a while, since before Revolution. So there was a lot they could have done, and they kind of got a little bit of a ho-hum card, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, last week was what the main event was: Gates of Agony and Warjo.
Yes.
And like that's a fine match, but like not really like main event. Like,
well, the funny thing is,
fun.
Rampage is kind of a backwards show, right? Where Rampage really pushes its biggest match first, because that's likely when they're going to get the most viewership, because Rampage runs so late. And so the Rampage main event is never like something to completely write off. But I think since the first episode of Rampage, the very first Rampage was the opening match was Kenny versus Christian, right? Like that was the bigger
Still one
match.
of my favorite AEW matches.
Right, that was the bigger match to run. And then the main event of that show was Red Velvet versus Britt Baker. And like, it gave Britt Baker her due to say that she's in the main event, but ultimately we knew the biggest match they could put on was the one they opened the show with. And I think that that's just how Rampage is structured. Like this past week, I mean, Shibata versus Orange Cassidy was the match. That's the match everybody came for. Mike Tyson was commentating. Like, Rampage main events aren't necessarily main events. It's like, we know what's happening here, or at least we should. We got another one. Mac from Brooklyn. He says, Will Washington and Pro Wrestling Noah, RBR past and present. That's what's up. Thank you, Mac.
Yeah.
Always appreciate you. Okay, we got another one. This one is from Don't Mind Me, I'm at Work. I love that username. Thank you. It says, this is a Humper Chat. He says, there have been a lot of rumblings about Warner getting more AEW media. Assuming this means we're finally getting an ROH show, what form would you like it to come back as? 1 hour live TV on, say, Thursday, 2nd hour to Rampage, streaming on HBO Max. What would you like to see? What would I like to see? I don't know. I think everybody should be taking more advantage of the streaming platforms out there. I think that HBO Max has such a strong base that if you have a relationship with Warner Brothers Discovery, it makes no sense to not take advantage of that. And that is, I feel like HBO Max has a really dedicated, intentional base, if that makes sense. Peacock's base is strong, right? Peacock has a strong base, but a lot of Peacock's subscriber base is really based on the fact that they give a lot of it away for free to Xfinity subscribers.
Yeah.
I'm an Xfinity subscriber. I get Peacock, right? It's like, it makes it that easy for a lot of people.
And the fact that it is like free to watch with ads. Like you still get ads with the $5 tier, but that gives you access to other, like exclusive shows.
Mm-hmm.
But it is still something that you can view without really putting money into it.
Yeah. I feel like, because I feel like Peacock and Amazon Prime to me are the two most unintentional subscription-based services where like people have it, but they usually have it tied to something else.
Yeah.
I feel like the two biggest intentional subscription services are Netflix and HBO Max. You know when you sign up for HBO Max what you're getting, and you're going, I guess Disney Plus. Disney Plus, I would say, is very intentional as well. Yeah. But HBO Max is a very intentional service. You know people who have HBO Max, and they know what they want out of it. They're going for their Game of Thrones, or in this case now, House of the Dragon. They're going for the content that they want out of HBO Max. And so being a very intentional streaming service, I feel that that's something that should really be taken advantage of by whoever has a relationship with it, because it's something that people use because they have it. So that's kind of where I would like to see Ring of Honor end up. As far as night of the week, I don't know. Throw it on Tuesdays just to fuck with.
Yeah, that's kind of what. There's so
throw
much
the war
wrestling.
back out there. Why not?
Yeah, but there's so much wrestling happening during any given week now that it's who do you counter program?
Yeah,
and I feel like it's either NXT or it's Impact. Like which one of those?
But I mean, like I said, I've been hearing rumblings for a while as far as where it's going to end up and what it's exactly going to be. I think we'll probably hear a lot about it at the next pay-per-view, which is only a month from today. So I think that's when that announcement comes. We're also supposed to hear some big announcements as AEW just confirmed about Fight Forever, that they're going to be making announcements at Full Gear as far as my gut feeling is that's when we get the release date. I think that they said that that's going to be the next big drop as far as the game is concerned.
It got pushed to next year, didn't it?
Yeah. So that's at least as far as any of the pre-order stuff is concerned. We could see what the game is going to end up. I think we'll get a substantial and significant update now, especially that Kenny Omega's back in the fold. We'll start hearing a lot more stuff about it. But yeah, Full Gear is where they've confirmed they're going to do some announcements as far as the game is concerned. I hope we get to see a little more gameplay. I know that build that they ran at Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show, that build was apparently 2 months old when they ran it then. And like Evil Uno had hinted at that when he did that gameplay demo. Evil Uno was like, the game is much further along than what we're showing you right now. That was an old build, and already it's a lot further along than just that. So we'll see. There was of course a rumor that came out of WrestleZone that dropped about the game being in Game Pass, and then
that was squashed within 24 hours.
Within 24 hours, AEW Game said that they don't have any intentions at this time of dropping it on any subscription services. So that dream died very quickly, I guess. So either way, I think the next two pay-per-views as we get through Full Gear and then Final Battle, we'll start to get a lot more information about where things are headed. But yeah, I've had conversations with a friend who is in a really great position to know certain stuff at Warner Media. I have conversations with him on the regular, and they are really confident in AEW's future, even as a lot of the fan base right now feels not so energized about things, feels a little I don't know, just like okay about stuff at best.
And that I feel like that kind of makes sense given that Discovery is kind of the head of the whole HBO, situation right now. And I feel like they very much value live or like less post-produced content. So I feel like something like professional wrestling does kind of fit in their wheelhouse for something like that.
I think more so, and this is kind of what I've been saying since the merger happened, was that I kind of knew that Discovery or Warner Brothers Discovery was going to be more than anything interested in slashing the budget. We knew that. We knew that they were going to kill a lot of their productions. The thing is, AEW is not their production. AEW is a show they license. And so they're not on the hook for anything there, right? So if anything, it's like, how can we get more content that we're not on the hook for? How can we get more content that we don't have to pay staff for, that literally we just have the content, it's ours, but we're not on the hook for the production? License, right? And so AEW is licensed content, and that's something that, like, ultimately, they don't want to have no content. They just want to have content that they don't have to completely foot the bill for. And I think that AEW fits in that wheelhouse for them just fine. And I think that's why the stories coming out that they want more AEW content. It's because, look, this is all content that somebody else is paying the staff for, that somebody else is paying the contracts for. And literally all we have to do is pay for the content itself and run it. And that is an ideal situation, because that's the situation Fox is in with SmackDown. They don't have to pay for shit for SmackDown except for SmackDown. They don't have to pay those wrestlers. They don't have to pay none of that stuff. Just pay for the show and run it. And that's it. And it's cheap too. SmackDown is cheap. Raw is cheap. That's why wrestling is going to keep getting these types of deals, because that stuff is cheap. As long as you haven't already proven yourself to be a not so great commodity like an Impact.
Right. And also
And
just knowing the kind of content that Discovery likes, I could also see them making some more shows like Roads to the Top or any other kind of, reality TV show starring professional wrestlers kind of thing.
I'm pretty sure yesterday was when they started taping the Roads to the Top replacement show.
Oh boy.
That the that as far as I know, they, at least Talent was told that on the, and maybe it's next week's show, maybe I'm wrong, but I know it was either this week or next week, that Talent was informed that, hey, reality TV cameras are going to be backstage and we're going to start taping these scenarios for our next reality show featuring AEW talent. So, like, be aware that you're going to be on camera for a lot of your reactions to things and things like that. Of course, they also have to agree to it.
Well, I can't wait to see what Jericho and his 8 dogs are up to.
And the funny thing was, that was the thing people liked most about Roads to the Top, right? Like, it wasn't so much the at-home drama that people were into. The things that anybody who liked Roads to the Top liked was the stuff backstage, the Brandy having to sit down with Red Velvet and Jade Cargill over the getting slapped too hard, stuff like that, and Cody, as far as when he got backstage after being booed, and like, how did that feel? Like, that stuff was the stuff that was intriguing. The stuff at home, who fucking cares? But that was the stuff that we wanted to see, was how, I would love to see how Saraya felt getting backstage after that promo, right? Like, that's stuff that would be really cool. And I think that if that's essentially what the replacement for Roads to the Top is going to be, gimme. I'll take it. I would love to see a behind the scenes type show. And yeah, they're talking about in the chat, Tim Gordon brought up Stark having his injury was heartbreaking. And yeah, we got to see that unfold. We got to see them talking and telling Starks about his injury and what his prognosis was, but how he's going to be kept on TV and part of Team Taz. He just won't get to wrestle. Again, there's ways you can make that show entertaining and intriguing. I just think that, yeah, the at-home stuff just wasn't any good or any fun. So, are you ready to talk about AEW Dynamite?
Yeah.
So, show opened with an 8-man tag match. We saw the Guns, the Gun Club, teaming with Swerve in Our Glory. And again, little things to watch for with Swerve in Our Glory. As I've mentioned before, that is a long-term story that has its ending already, like, squared away. It's a long-term story that's going to keep playing out. Keep watching that story. So, of course, there's still questions. Questions you should be asking. Like, again, last week, Keith Lee asked the question, who is behind the camera? We still don't.
Yeah. And even on commentary, when they did their entrance, then they didn't catch it on camera, but I think JR mentioned that, like, Keith went for a fist bump and Swerve, or maybe it was the other way around. Swerve went for a fist bump and Keith was like, nah.
Yeah, Tony came out and Swerve hit the ring, or hit the ramp, and then as Keith Lee comes out, he puts out his fist for a fist bump, and they're pointing out in the chat something that's actually kind of funny, but he goes for the fist bump and Keith Lee ignores him, because that was a story building throughout the match. Keith Lee is kind of over Swerve, over his antics. He didn't even want to tag him in the match, but once they did get on the same page, they were effective. So yes, they faced the team of FTR and the AEW World Tag Team Champions, Max Caster, Anthony Bowens, the Acclaimed. Max Caster was back in his rap form. It felt like those have been kind of off the last few weeks, but this one was just chock full of pop culture and sports references and a whole bunch of digs at Swerve. And he noted when it says whose house they got to add noise. I took exception to that, of course, as the guy who made the whose house part of Swerve's theme. Can you prove that? I don't know. Maybe. All I know is let's see. Well, where is it? Do I I guess I don't have it with me right now. Oh, yes, I do. All I know is, and of course, not going to get myself copyright struck, but when I play Swerve's theme, it sounds a little bit like this. Here it goes. Oh shit, the volume's not loud enough. Ready? All I know is it sounds like this. Whose house? And that's all play from that. So I'm just saying that if there's some sweetening to that, I'm not going to say anything else. All I'm going to say is shut the fuck up, Max Caster. All right? Worry about your own intro. And
shots fired.
Yeah. Either way, it's I liked Caster's rap this week, and I feel like that's the piece that the fans like really want out of the Acclaim, and glad they got to see more of that. Of course, it was noted that they had Daddy Ass with them, but we didn't see Daddy Ass. And then he just rushes the ring and goes straight after Swerve. That was kind of cool. And then match basically kicks off, gets started, and this was really a showcase of 2 different feuds, but really 3 different stories, right? Because FTR was doing their thing, and they've got their beef with the Guns, but also FTR still wants those tag team titles, so we got to see a little bit play out in the ring with them and the Acclaimed, and they're on the same page, but at the same time, they want those belts, and they know that when it's time, it's going to be time. So crowd was into this, though. The show, of course, took place in Boston. I was asked earlier today that as far as Boston was concerned, because I guess Tony Khan came out after the show and noted that Boston was the second most run city of AEW's behind Chicago's. And I was asked how true that was, and off the top of my head, I went, okay, I remember Dynamite in Boston 2019. That was the second episode of Dynamite. That was the one where Private Party beat the Young Bucks. That was definitely in Boston. I remember that. They were in Boston last October, I want to say. And then they were in Boston just earlier this year, because I remember the thing that stands out to me about Boston, by the way, as an arena, specifically the Agganis Arena, is that there's like this giant exit section that's like right in the middle of the shot. So like there's this like, you see all these fans, and then you see this like giant black
gaping hole.
Yeah, this gaping hole in the middle of the wide shot. And it just always stands out to me, so I always remember that visual. And I remember earlier this year, it was during the Adam Cole and Hangman feud, because Hangman had that promo where he kind of put Adam Cole in a box. And so so I would say this is their 4th time in that arena. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that would be one of the cities they've run the most often, because the only other one would be Chicago and obviously Daly's Place. So, although, trivia question for you.
Oh.
Which city?
I got this.
All right. Ready? Which AEW city has had more pay-per-views? And chat, no looking this up, but I want to see the chat's answers as well. Is it Jacksonville or Chicago?
That's hard, because I feel like recently they love going to Chicago. But I want to say it's Jacksonville because of COVID, because they had to like run pay-per-views there. So that's, my brain tells me that that's what it is. So I'm going to say Jacksonville.
Your brain was on the right track, because That's actually a trick question. They're tied. They've had the exact same amount of pay-per-views, and so your logic was sound on both because they've done as many pay-per-views in Chicago as they had to do in Jacksonville during the pandemic. Because they did 5 pay-per-views in Jacksonville, and then they've also done All Out 1, All Out in 2021, and there was the Revolution 2020, Forbidden Door, and All Out 2022. So both got 5. But you know what? Like I said, your logic was sound on both. I like this opening tag match. I ultimately like everybody in this. I like the story of Keith Lee and Swerve not being on the same page to start, mostly because of Keith Lee not wanting to be on Swerve, not wanting to be with Swerve and not wanting to do what Swerve wants to do. But once he realizes that, okay, when we're on the same page, we win. I like that. I like them coming together. Ultimately, though, the baby faces won. And
I did love the spot of all the baby faces having all the heels in the corner doing, like punching down on them.
Oh, yeah.
And then Keith just tosses Max off of him into the center of the ring. I thought that was great.
Yeah, no, that was a fun spot. And then, of course, Swerve's dive into the everybody else, followed by the Dax Harwood suplex. Great stuff. I had fun with this match, and the crowd was really into it. So this was a great way to start the show. I love when hot tag matches get to start the show. If I remember correctly, have Swerve and Keith Lee kicked off Dynamite before? I don't think so. I know they've kicked off Rampage, but I cannot recall a time that they've gotten to kick off the show. They've main evented, but as far as getting to kick off, so this was cool. And I felt like this was a bit of a first. And then we got backstage and kind of a lot of promo time in the next segment, because we had MJF on the Pardon My Take podcast, and we talked about that a little bit, but he smoked this shit. One take. That was it. This was not
crazy.
This was not one of those things where MJF got to do a sit down, and that's not to say that a lot of guys don't do one take promos. But the best part about this was this literally came in the middle of doing that podcast. They were talking, and then he is asked about missing appearances on Dynamite, and he just goes, and he killed this. Some of the stuff he brought up here. This man talked about how all of his moments have been overshadowed in AEW thus far. His first pay-per-view match, overshadowed by a neck tattoo. Ooh, that was good.
That's very good.
His second major moment, he talked about, he main evented All Out 2020 and
against Moxley, right?
Yeah, against Moxley, but the only thing people were talking about on that show was Matt Hardy Humpty Dumptying himself, like MJF said. He talked about his major moment with Blood and Guts, and how it was supposed to be him aggressively standing on top of the cage with his crowning moment being bloody, and instead, but he's talking about Chris Jericho falling onto crash pads. And at least he didn't say the crash pad part, because I was afraid, like, you can't say that. And like my gut was like, oh, what's he about to say about that? Because that breaks kayfabe.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I feel like that one might even be just a little bit of a stretch. Like, yes, he's right, but also I feel like one of the most iconic images of that match is Max with with the crimson mask standing on top of the cage. That's just a powerful image from that match.
It was a powerful image, but I agree with the idea that, like, the only thing people were talking about was Chris Jericho's landing. And then we had he brought up his big return, literally just 2 months ago. And
this being the most egregious example of him being overshadowed.
And the fact that it was overshadowed by a press conference. And that's the first time the press conference was actually referenced on television.
Oh, is that true?
Shit.
Wow, that's right.
When has that press conference been referenced?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like they've like danced around it, but yeah, I guess this is the first time it's actually been referenced as like this is the event we're talking about.
Yeah, but I can't recall a time that's been mentioned on TV.
Wow.
And but MJF talked about how this is going to be his moment. Although wouldn't it be wild if some dumb shit happened at Full Gear as well? But either way, yeah, I thought he was great here. He talked about Moxley having 2 left feet and not an athletic bone in his body. But he turned that around, right? He was like, with all of Moxley's setbacks, Moxley still became the best in the world. And I love that because he's absolutely fucking right. And although DQ Irving in the chat, good point. MJF talking about being overshadowed, but forgets about overshadowing Wardlow. He's always the hero of his own story, and it's great. He did.
Yeah.
But no, the way he took his digs at Moxley, but then turned it around, and yeah, Moxley is the best in the world. Like he knows, and MJF is so good at this. He is so good at, and I feel like it's a skill he got better at upon his return. And tell me what you think of this, but I feel like MJF got a whole lot better, and it's almost something I want to see Britt Baker get better at playing your role as the heel, burying your opponent in a way that a heel should, but also lifting up exactly what you're talking about and making the fans see it in a positive light. I feel like he got better at that since he's been back, and not just at Moxley, but AEW as a whole, right? Like when he did the interviews with Ariel Helwani, before the first time he did the interview, everybody's like, why is he doing this? Why is he like talking about going to WWE? Why is he talking about the bidding war of 2024? But he found a way to get better at that, where now, like when he brings up the bidding war of 2024, now he spins it in a way where he talks up the AEW product and how the AEW product is as big as it is because of me. It is as what it is because I'm on it. And if they want to keep it that way, AEW has to pony up some money. Like, okay, now all of a sudden you're talking up AEW, but you're making people feel like it's because of you. And so, or at least you're spinning it in a way that's because of you. Because of course, as Regal did a couple weeks ago, MJF's points all are valid to him, but can easily be deconstructed like a true heel should be. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that all of that is very valid. And it is that he very much is the reason why people show up, especially now that kind of a lot of the main characters, let's say, of AEW are not around. So I feel like the audience is very much latching onto him as like one, like he is still, like when you think of AEW and who is on TV right now, MJF is kind of the guy. Mm-hmm. So I think that, yeah, that makes perfect sense that would be his argument.
Except he's not on TV right now, and that's
well, right now, yeah, that's true.
And then right after that, as we brought up, we got the Stokely promo and talked about how he thought he and MJF were friends, and that we were always going to do things together. But now he's dick riding Moxley. What the fuck? You said dick riding on TV? That's amazing.
Like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
I love it.
In an edited video package. Like how, but I guess when you are Stokely Hathaway, you have the charisma to pull that off.
Yes. And I am curious to where all of this is heading. I still don't trust Max. And I just don't.
Do you think that they're still going to be responsible for like screwing over Moxley and getting Max the championship? Do you think they're just kind of playing like, playing up this disagreement, but they're actually still, in cahoots behind the scenes?
I think that, yeah, I don't know. I think that Yes, that's. Oh, I think MJF is still ultimately working with them, but I don't know. I don't know how we get there. So then we had the first round of the Full Gear tournament. This Full Gear tournament, looking at the landscape of it, didn't get to talk about this last week because the full landscape was announced on Rampage, and I don't do a show for Rampage. Although if I did, maybe I should do a show before Rampage.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, well, think about it.
Oh.
So, like, I do Day After Dynamite, right? DAD. What if I did a show that previews Rampage, and it's called... am I breaking up? Is there a thing here? No.
No,
Anyway.
I don't. No, I'm good.
No. But what if I did a show that came on right before Rampage, and we call it Right Before Rampage, or RBR, and it's hosted by me?
Oh my god!
No.
Perfect branding.
Yeah, I figure. Yeah, I don't know. I just figure doing a show called RBR would make perfect sense, right? Right before Rampage. Let's do it. And
Wow.
So I'm sorry. So the tournament was announced. I like the tournament. I like the Full Gear tournament because I like how they've kind of made Winter is Coming the most important like Dynamite of the year. And the first year, of course, Kenny Omega won the Full Gear tournament. The finals of it were Kenny Omega versus Hangman Adam Page. He went on to Winter is Coming to become AEW World Champion. So at least we have an established precedent that not only does this tournament matter, but Winter is Coming matters. And so I like that. Right? I also liked that the last year, right? You had the tournament. It came down to Miro and Danielson. It was supposed to come down to Moxley and Danielson. And rumor has it that Moxley was supposed to win and turn heel in that process. And instead, it ended up due to circumstances that ended up making Moxley an even more sympathetic babyface. It ended up with Bryan winning the tournament and Bryan turning heel and having that really phenomenal couple months of a heel run. But Moxley... So this year, the interesting about this year is that the whole landscape of it, when you looked at it, is kind of all new guys, right? It's all guys that
haven't held a belt.
Right. All of them, if inserted into the title picture, would refresh the title picture. Like, especially if MJF is winning the title, every single option in this is a fresh option. So it makes it really curious where things are headed. But the opening round match, Ethan Page versus Eddie Kingston, was already something we looked at as who wins this? Like, on the one end, the fans want Eddie Kingston. They love Eddie Kingston. On the other side of it, though, Ethan Page has this story kind of brewing.
They've been pushing him a lot for the championship.
So that question remains. It remained through this match. Do you push Ethan Page because he hasn't really been getting his singles due since he came into the company, but now feels like the time to
tied
do
up
it.
tied up with Top Team for like a year.
And now here it was. The match was fine. I don't know. I didn't hate any parts of it. We had a distraction finish that led to the Ego's Edge, an Avalanche Ego's Edge,
which was scary. Like it looked like it took a little bit to set up, and then it finally happened. But Eddie's a big dude, so it's makes
Eddie,
you nervous.
Eddie is smart in those types of scenarios because the thing Eddie did that I liked here was the way when Ego wasn't able to get all of Eddie's arms locked for it, the way Eddie made it look like a struggle. Like, okay, he doesn't have my arm, so I'm going to start to kind of fight it a little bit. And of course, Eddie did get, as being pointed out in the chat, Eddie did have a visual tap out. Eddie had it won when Stokely distracted the referee. But ultimately, we got to see Ego get the victory. This is his first. I felt like this was his first major like singles victory on Dynamite, and he's been in the company since March of 2021. It's been well over a year and a half. And I liked seeing him get this singles victory. I think he and Scorpio had some big victories, and he had they beat Darby in that handicap match. But again, as far as the singles match is concerned, I don't think he's had a bigger singles victory than this, and I think it made him look pretty good. I think he's going to the finals. TBH.
Oh, I think he's definitely going to the fight. Like with the way that they've been pushing him, and giving him this story of wanting the championship, I feel like this is definitely going to be Ethan Page in the finals. And depending on how things go with Starks, I feel like it's pretty easy to come to the conclusion that the finals is going to be him and Starks.
Yes. That's my thought. I think it's going to be him and Starks as well. We then saw yes. So this segment was fascinating. We saw a Ari Daivari basically just getting slaughtered by Wardlow.
Boy.
But then the match wasn't very long. I almost think it took a little bit longer than it needed to. And so after Powerbomb Symphony, all of that, Wardlow, who was accompanied by Samoa Joe, and accompanying Wardlow, looked quite invisibly annoyed by Wardlow the whole time. So we knew something was coming. It was just a matter of when. Wardlow calls out Powerhouse Hobbs. Hobbs makes his way out, and Hobbs says, "We're going to do this on my time." And Wardlow says he wants to fight Hobbs, and then he notes that he wants to fight, and he's going to retain this TNT championship. He'll put the TNT title on the line because he's going to retain this title, and he's going after all the titles. And this angered Samoa Joe, and Samoa Joe clocks Wardlow with the title and then chokes him out. Coquina Clutch. What did you think?
I think this is fine. I have never been a huge fan of the War-Joe pairing because I feel like Wardlow picked up so much steam going into his TNT title reign, and then once he got it, it just kind of stalled out.
Yes.
And pairing him with Joe, I feel like wasn't really doing that any favors. So having him go up against Joe like this, I think will help pick up momentum for his TNT title reign. Or Hobbs just takes off him, because I would also love to see Hobbs have a turn with the TNT title. But then, having Wardlow fight Joe is still more interesting than what was going on right now.
This was hard to kind of read, right? Because the crowd wasn't happy with this, and they were booing. But then I know there's people in AEW. I know a few of them. There are people in AEW who worked under Vince McMahon's production. I'm interested in asking Tony. Tony, if you're watching, answer me this. Does Tony follow the heel turn rule that Vince follows? And for those unaware of the rule, Vince has always had this rule. It started in, I want to say 2001. And I think it was The Undertaker that kind of like kicked it off, because it was kind of hard to get the point across. But Undertaker had turned heel at the end of 01, and Undertaker was using Rollin' as a theme. And if I remember correctly, he turns heel and then Rollin' starts playing. And that was a song that like fans really liked at the time. And so it like almost didn't hammer in that you're supposed to hate this moment, because now here's this song people like. And so Vince had a rule, and it's been in place ever since, which is when someone turns heel, you do not play their music. And that a heel turn is supposed to soak in silence. It's supposed to soak in the music. It's supposed to soak in what is that? Oh, nothing. Anyway, but it's supposed to. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. But it's supposed to soak in the. You're supposed to let the moment soak in everything, right? But like Samoa Joe does this, crowd's booing, and then Joe's music plays. Does Tony Khan follow that rule? Because again, it's up. I get it. It's promotion specific. It could be, right? Or was this just to separate Joe from Wardlow, which I think more likely it is, because my gut feeling tells me that Joe is challenging Jericho for the Ring of Honor title, and I think he needs to be away from the TV title to do that.
That makes sense.
I think they could, in theory, put both titles on the line. If I were booking this, you ready for it? I would put the TNT ROH Television Championship on the line. And then in doing so, I would have Hobbs win both and win the triple threat match.
Yeah.
And therefore, you then have Wardlow away from the TNT title. You can kind of go with a stronger heel run. And that I feel like that's the thing the TNT title has lacked, is a really strong heel run since Miro. Miro was really the last to me.
I was thinking about this the other day, that Miro, I feel like, is truly the best TNT champion that we've had. I would maybe put Darby up there, but Miro is the champion I was most entertained by. Just all of the God's favorite champion stuff was so up my alley, and I loved all of that.
I did too. I think it was really starting to get its legs under it when they took it off of him. And yeah, I think Darby has probably had the best babyface run to me. I would like to see them get back to having, and yeah, I get it, Caden. Yeah, Cody had a strong run to get it started. I think Cody established the belt easily.
He established it as the open championship belt, or the open challenge belt, which has made that it has helped differentiate the TNT title from the world title in a good way, I think.
Yeah, I'm ready to see a heel try again with it. I feel like the Scorpio Sky run didn't work as much as I wanted it to, as much as I love Scorpio Sky. I feel like we weren't seeing it out of him. And I am just ready to see a strong heel with that belt. I want to see it be Hobbs. And I think a good way to run with that would be to have him win both. Put both belts on the line, triple threat match, TNT, and the television championship. And then, yeah, I think you can move Joe on to Jericho. I think ultimately, as much as Jericho keeps going after these former Ring of Honor champions, that's the one that needs to ultimately, I don't know if it's the ultimate one, but I know that that's one that we can't keep avoiding.
And I guess that also begs the question, if Hobbs is the TNT champion, what if Starks wins the world title? What does that look like?
I don't know if he wins the world title, but I think I think he wins the tournament. I don't know that he wins the world title though. But either way, that's what I would like to see is a merger situation. And maybe not a merger, but at least I would love to see Hobbs holding both belts. I think that would be really cool, actually.
Absolutely.
Let's see. We then had, of course, the moment that everybody's talking about. Tony Schiavone is in the ring. He brings out Britt Baker. And
some cool baggy pants.
Yeah.
Britt Baker was looking cool last night.
Britt Baker looking like a 90s skater was, or I guess it's like late 90s, early 2000s-ish. What the hell? I was not expecting
Great fit.
Great fit. Britt Baker took on, so she didn't take on anybody, but she is in the ring for a face-to-face with Saraya. I want to point out one really funny moment here, in case anybody wasn't paying attention. So Tony Schiavone clearly had an earpiece in, right? So Tony Schiavone hands the mic off to Saraya and then goes to exit the ring, but like is clearly in the shot. And then you can see him like pause because I think somebody told him in his earpiece, hey, you're like kind of bending over in the camera. Don't do that. Like stop for a sec. And then he just like gets out of the ring. But he's very clearly in the shot doing so. I don't know. I thought that was funny.
Oops.
But either way, Saraya makes her big announcement. She says that unfortunately for Brit, she's 100% clear. I have to tell you, regardless of how you may feel about Saraya, and I get it, I keep seeing people on the internet who, again, I feel like my issue here is that we kind of pick and choose whose personal stuff we want to throw in with pro wrestling, and that's why as far as I'm concerned, I just avoid all of it because at the end of the day, I'm solely talking about the show that I watch. Because there's a lot of people whose stuff is conveniently ignored, and I'm here to review the show that's put on in front of me.
Right.
So, but I've seen it. I've seen it all. I've seen all the reactions to Saraya. That said, I'm just going to straight up say it. When she said she was 100% clear and you could see that emotion in her face, I actually welled up a little bit. I actually felt that. I actually felt like that was a cool moment for her to get to do that. That anybody whose career didn't get to end on their terms, especially in their 20s, that sucks. And you always want to see that person get a second chance. And she got it. And that was a really cool moment. And she announced that she is clear. There is nothing about this that I felt poorly about to start.
Yeah. And I hope things work out well for her. Because, I mean, I feel like people were saying similar things around the time that Bryan Danielson said that he was going to wrestle again. Like people, like, people thought he was never going to wrestle again. And
I was at work.
Turns out he did.
I was at work when that news broke about Bryan returning to the ring. And do you know how hard it is to explain to coworkers at an office building that are like, whoa, Will, what's wrong? And I'm like, my favorite wrestler is wrestling again. And they're like, I'm sorry, what? I'm like, so like they're not hurt? And I'm like, they're not dead? Like, no, they're wrestling and it's great.
It's a miracle.
You don't understand and you'll never understand. Get away from my cubicle. But anyway, so no, I did. And like I said, like just to see again, I am a guy who's, as far as wrestling is concerned, never say never. And I think the last couple of years have really proven that never say never is very true in pro wrestling. Somebody's told they're never going to wrestle again until they're in the friggin' grave. I don't buy it. I don't buy that we've seen the last Undertaker match. I don't. I just don't. I don't. I mean,
especially with all the stuff we've seen in the past like 2 years, there has been so many like, well, that never thought that would happen moments.
The fact that Ric Flair literally promoted a pay-per-view as his last match and now is like, well, I mean, I could do that again.
Meanwhile, everyone is like, please don't.
Yeah.
Please don't.
I don't believe until somebody is dead that they've had their last match. And even still, I don't even buy that. At some point, we're just going to be like, hey, we figured out resurrection here. Let's get that.
Oh my.
Let's get those Eddie Guerrero dream matches out of the way. But so I'm really happy to see Saraya getting to do this and getting another chance at it. And so it was cool. It was a cool moment. Brit gets the mic. And again, I like Britt Baker on the microphone. My biggest thing with Brit, my biggest complaint with Brit over the years has been that she gets to knock a lot of people down because she's very good at throwing those verbal daggers. But a lot of people don't get much over back on her. And she doesn't necessarily leave a whole lot of openings for people to get back at her. You know, she got to give the Saraya, people don't even know your name. And the only opening Saraya got back on that was, well, Brit runs with shit. And it's like, okay, that sucked.
That's unfortunate.
And I feel like, you know, MJF is good at that. MJF is very good at leaving enough openings for somebody to get back at him. And that's what made that Regal segment so good, right? That like MJF, we thought he eviscerated Regal, and all it took was a minute for Regal to remind us that, like, dude, you let an email get you that riled up?
Yeah.
And it was like, damn, didn't see that coming. That was actually really good. And so, yeah, you know, Brit talked about this being her house, and, you know, you say it's your house, but I built this place brick by brick. And you came to my place. So like, I didn't hate any of what was said, but I get why people aren't a big fan of, like, I think people liked Brit stuff and the fans like Brit stuff. Like, they started chanting DMD. They were into that. Saraya's comeback was interesting because Saraya's younger than Brit. And so, but Saraya is much more experienced. And I wish somebody would bring that up, that Saraya's been wrestling her whole life. I saw a lot of people take it as kind of the same way where Punk had insulted Hangman, saying, you haven't done anything in this business. And it was like, well, he's been a former world champion. What are you talking about? Unless you're equating to being in the business as simply being in WWE, in which case that's a very bad thing to say on an AEW program. I think a lot of people took what Saraya was saying as that. But I feel like Saraya she talked more about, I mean, not so much about just her WWE experience. She was talking about how she was born in the business, how much she had to fight to get noticed long before she was ever signed to WWE. I think that's more of what she was talking about, and a lot less, because she mentioned that, you know, Britt Baker was handpicked by Tony Khan. There's like no disputing that. Brit has kind of run with that for a little bit. She was on posters long before she ever got over. That's not a thing that especially a heel should run away from. If anything, it's like, yeah, I was the first woman signed to this company. I was Tony Khan's biggest female investment in this company. And yes, I am somebody that this company is built around. Suck it. But as far as Saraya was concerned, a lot of people gave her shit because she mentioned the Tokyo Dome. People were like, you were never in the Tokyo Dome. What are you talking about? And she tweeted out this morning that she knew it was wrong at the time, but but that you couldn't just like correct it.
Yeah, you couldn't circle back at that point.
You can't circle back. She said that she realized in the promo, she's like, oh, why did I say that? Because what she meant was, and remind me, what location, what was the venue? It's where Beast in the East took place. It was WWE's WWE Network special that aired in 2015. Chat, you're going to have to remind me. I remember that had the Brock Lesnar versus Kofi match, part 1, which was a squash, and somehow Kofi still got more offense in that than his world title match. But that was the Budokan Hall, the Sumo Hall, as the chat is reminding me. Thank you. That's what she meant. And she either way, she mentioned that she knew she got that wrong. But there was no correcting that. Imagine mid promo, somebody like halfway through, like on a podcast going, yeah, and then, oh, actually 30 seconds ago when I said the Tokyo Dome, I totally meant Sumo Hall. My bad. And
yeah, it's kind of hard to double back on that once you've already committed. Like you could maybe, you have like a second or two to correct that, but if it's already done, it's done. Just don't even try.
And by the way, if I remember correctly, that was where Finn Balor beat Kevin Owens for the NXT title. I know there was a title change on that show. So either way, she admitted that she knew the mistake. Other than that, I didn't hate any of this. I actually thought that I liked Brit's line of "We don't take walk-ins, so bitch, make an appointment." I actually did really like that.
That was really good. That very in character, very very thematically correct.
And as far as Saraya was concerned, it felt like Saraya was losing a lot of the crowd, and I think part of it is because AEW fans are very loyal to their product, and I think that everything Brit was saying was resonating with them as far as, oh look, another outsider coming to take my spot.
That crowd also just seemed a little weird all night. They were just kind of they seemed a little down on, like, when the show was trying to pick up. They seemed like they weren't reacting as big as they could have for some stuff.
I
don't know.
That.
It was just a little weird all night.
We did see that, like, either way, it was announced Britt Baker is going to take on Saraya. It's so funny how, like, a couple weeks ago, people are like, Full Gear card really isn't seeming like things are coming together for it, and now it's looking like there's going to be 11 matches on the card by the time the show rolls around. Holy shit. That's how many matches All Out had. Oh, they're saying I've gone robotic.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Noah, you're going to have to sit here by yourself while I refresh.
Cool. Great. How's it going? How's that work? All right. Oh, you get to see more of my setup here?
Yeah. Somebody asked Garfield me recently why that doesn't happen on Grapsity or any of the other shows I do. I will tell you why, folks. So, apparently, the protocols in which our streaming solution works differently on three-way chats than it does one-on-ones. And so something screws up in the one-on-one scenario that doesn't screw up on multi-person. It's very interesting.
Huh. Maybe it's part of... Well, no, you podcast around the same time of the day, right? On both Saturday and
on Sundays. The thing is, on Sundays, I don't know. It's all been very weird for me, and I'm sorry. It's a day after Dynamite staple, though, being a one-on-one show.
Yeah.
So, continuing on, we have best friends. I want to backtrack real quick. There was a big announcement made on this show. I don't have enough detail on this announcement to speak confidently. I guess it's not that I don't have enough detail, it's that I don't have enough confirmation. So once I have a little more confirmation, I'll talk about it. But at the same time, it's AEW's announcement to make. It's a big announcement. If I come across any details, it'll definitely be reported because that's what we do here at Fightful. But AEW did announce officially the UK tour.
Oh, okay.
That's huge, right? They announced on Dynamite, they did reveal that they're going to be hitting the UK in 2023. And as far as when, we don't know. And where, we definitely don't know. But they said they're going to officially reveal all of those details on next week's Dynamite.
I hope they go to Pac's house.
That would be great. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot they can do, and I did talk to one person who has some theories on what it's going to be, and it is somebody in AEW, but like I said, that's not confident enough to run. So because I think they're also somewhat speculating, but of course that's inside speculation. So it was basically just the confirmation that next week you're going to get the full-on announcement. I can't help but wonder exactly what it's all going to be and when and where. And then Tony told the crowd last night that they're apparently going to get a pay-per-view. That running
in the UK?
No, Boston. He was specifically
Oh,
saying
in Boston.
He told
Okay.
the Boston crowd that they're getting a pay-per-view. As far as UK is concerned, I don't know what they end up doing. I hope it's a pay-per-view. That'd be cool. My guess is that it's just going to be like Dynamite Rampage.
Probably.
But we shall see what it ends up being. But yeah, he did tell that Boston crowd that, hey, we've run this crowd enough times. Probably time to give you guys like a pay-per-view or something.
Yeah, no, that totally checks out with how often they return there. Like, hey, we should probably do something big here.
Yes. So lots of show news as far as that's concerned. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot more detail on where it's going to be and when, but AEW is going to announce that very, very soon here.
I feel like Dallas is kind of getting up there too. Because I feel like every time they come to Texas, they're always like around the Dallas area. And I'm posted up around Houston. And I'm like, well, they've only been here twice, but they've been to the Dallas area like
I want to say they've hit
more
Dallas
times than that.
Dallas, they've hit what 3 times, and then the 4th is going to be this upcoming show. I guess if you count Ring of Honor, they've hit Dallas. This will be the 5th coming up, right? Because they've done.
I think so.
They did that infamous show with the Phantom Punches. That was Dallas, the one that everybody thought was going to be the end of the company at the end of 2019. And then they returned to Dallas for Winter is Coming last year. And then they were there this year for Supercard of Honor. But that was already booked. So I don't even necessarily count that as an AEW show. It was more like AEW production has taken over this show.
Yes.
And I will say, it was all AEW crew there. From cameramen to production, like everybody saw at that Ring of Honor show, it was all AEW people. So you could almost say it was a Ring of Honor show. Or it was an AEW show. And then they were there for that Battle of the Belts earlier this year. And now they've got Winter is Coming up. So I guess technically Tony has run 5 shows there, or will have run 5 shows there at the end of this year. But so it's been just as much as Boston.
Yeah.
But you could also say that they kind of gave Dallas a pay-per-view in that Supercard of Honor show. And Arlington's getting the Ring of Honor show coming up here soon. Best friends. What the hell was this segment?
So weird.
This was so weird. And like,
oh, you're a robot again.
Am I really?
Yeah.
Okay. Noah, take over for 5 seconds.
Okay. Here we go. Yes, that's Freddie Garfield over there. I also have my Freddie glove. Cat Tree back here. Sometimes Cat hangs out. He's actually on the tortoise terrarium over there right now.
Well, now nobody can see your tortoise terrarium. You have a tortoise terrarium? Wait, let's talk about this. Wait. All right, we got to talk about the tortoise terrarium for a second.
Yeah, so we have a tortoise. I think he's almost 3 years old now. His name is Tortimus Prime.
Tortimus Prime.
Yeah, he hangs out. He's in the log right now. Yeah.
That rules.
Yeah, my wife, we used to have rats. We're currently ratless, but we live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and my wife has a large heart for animals. So we have 2 cats as well. We're kind of almost running a zoo out of here at the moment, and there's more pets on the list that we'll be adding in the future.
I get it. My wife is also a big animal person. We have 2 cats. I did have 2 dogs at one point. They just weren't right for our home, and we did rehome them last year. But I do have 2 cats that make cameos in the background. We also have a snake. We also have a
snake.
Yeah. I mean, well, the thing is, and then there's also my daughter has a betta fish that the cats nearly murdered on my daughter's last trip she went to a birthday party. It was a slumber party, and she left the door open, and the cats, basically it is one of those things where we tell my daughter frequently, close your door when you leave. The cats want to eat that fish.
Yep.
So
you're a robot again, by the way.
I don't understand at all, guys. This is a real problem, like an actual problem that I'm getting pissed off about. Bear with it. 2 seconds.
We got this. We can see more of my room. There's a Sonic print over there for all the Sonic Frontiers freaks out there, and I say that with much love.
Okay,
I aspire to be a freak.
I guess at this stage, folks, I think this is the universe trying to tell me, all right, speed up and hurry up and get through this show. So we're gonna finish up here.
Let's do it.
Either way, weird best friend segment. It's fucking weird.
Weird cut. Weird that they just went right from being backstage to, and they're entering the ring right now.
Yes. It was a weird cut. I thought that the challenge that was set up between Orange Cassidy taking on Lee Johnson this Friday, which is something I'm looking forward to, but I also think Lee Johnson shouldn't be in a position to be losing just yet, was just a little bit odd. It's because he just turned.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. This was just a weird segment, a weird cut. Trent versus Jay Lethal. Saw Trent attacked by Jay Lethal. I wasn't really into this much at all.
Yeah. Just all the Jay Lethal stuff I am not ever that excited about, but that faction I assume does like huge numbers in India, right? Because Satnam Singh is like one of their top celebrities over there, right?
I know his debut did, and like times where he's beaten people down have done big numbers. I don't know that this faction does. And either way, Jay Lethal won with lethal injection. This then brought out Jeff Jarrett. I thought, credit where it's due for Jarrett here. I thought Jeff Jarrett did a better job selling the faction than the faction has had done for themselves in forever.
It's his faction now, right? Like, yes. I feel like there's no other way to go about this than just this is Jeff Jarrett's faction now.
I thought the way he put over Jay Lethal and Jay Lethal's significance, probably a better job than anybody's done for Jay Lethal since he debuted in AEW last year. Putting over Sanjay Dutt, again, better job than anybody's done putting over Sanjay Dutt in forever. He puts over Satnam Singh and talks up and takes some shots at Braun Strowman. Didn't see that coming at all. I forgot that Braun Strowman. See, I didn't see Crown Jewel, so I didn't realize that the red pants he was talking about were I had a hunch he was talking about Braun because, of course, Braun was a dick on Twitter.
He's easy to make fun
weekend. Yeah, I forgot. I didn't even know he wore red skinny jeans, and so when until I saw the picture, I'm like, is that just a thing Braun does for fun? And then people were posting the picture from Crown Jewel. I'm like, oh, that's a thing he actually wore. The part where this fell apart was when the stage manager starts to tell Jeff Jarrett to wrap it up. And I thought Jeff was going to smash a guitar over his head or something. But he doesn't. Yeah, he looked like he was about to. And then the guy just runs off. And I'm like, was that an actual stagehand?
Yeah, and then they start playing the music. I don't know, because they framed him so well.
Right.
I assume it was part of the show.
I know. And I think it was, but just a matter of what was that supposed to be? That whole thing just fell apart. I hated this. After, from the moment they did the stagehand thing. I don't know. I didn't like it.
That was very strange. So how do you feel? I know some people are saying this jokingly, but how do you feel about this potentially being a TNA invasion type faction?
It better be over at Full Gear. That's it. I'm hoping this is just hey, Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal teaming up against Flair and Andrade did well. So let's have Sting and Darby do the same thing. But I don't want this to go any further.
Yeah. So as someone who was not watching professional wrestling around the time that Jeff Jarrett was relevant, at his most relevant, I am being entertained by this. Like the most I know about Jeff Jarrett is that I know what a slap nuts is. That's like the most I know about Jeff Jarrett.
Do you? Because let me tell you, Noah Stewart, I've been watching professional wrestling for 30-something years. Been watching it my entire life. I watched Jeff Jarrett in WCW. Watched that entire run. I don't know what a slap nuts is. And he would say it every week on television. What is a slap nuts? He would always choke on that, slap nuts. And sometimes he would even shorten it. Sometimes he'd say, choke on that, slappy. And I'm like, what is slappy? What does that even mean? Jeff Jarrett, to me,
was the thing to say.
He was the least cool heel of all time. I think that like he was easy to hate, but there was nothing remotely cool about this guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I could see that. My World is cool though. It's a good song to play.
Now let me also say, My World is one of those like nostalgic things that I hear now and I'm like, oh, that takes me back. But at the time, there was not a sound I hated more. When that opening screech would happen at any point in an episode of Impact, it was like, oh my God, I need to go do literally anything else because, and maybe it was because I associated it with Jeff Jarrett, and Jeff Jarrett was, his TNA run was basically him trying to prove his own legacy. And that's not to say he may or may not have deserved it. But it was hard to watch at the time because Jeff Jarrett never had a main event run in WWE. And he only got the main event run in WCW once all the stars were gone. And so it never really felt like he was the guy there. It never really felt like he was the guy in any part of the industry. And then when he launches TNA and it becomes this kind of celebrate Jeff Jarrett kind of promotion, it really like it would be like if when AEW launched. Remember, everybody was suspecting that's what Cody was going to do, and he never did it.
Right.
Everybody was.
He kind of went out of his way to not have that happen.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody was suspecting Cody was going to Jeff Jarrett his AEW. They was like, okay, Cody's starting a promotion here. He's going to make himself world champion, and he's going to dominate the show pretty much till he's forced out after, I don't know, somebody steals brandy or something. But and that didn't happen. It didn't happen at all. And it turned out that Jeff Jarrett may be the exception and not the rule for that. But either way, Jeff Jarrett, and the thing is, I think he can end up being a really good thing for the business in terms of peacemaking. He has historically been a really good peacemaker, just simply based on the fact that he knows so many people have connections to Jeff Jarrett, and he has saved a lot of people in pro wrestling over the years. He's given a lot of people their breaks. And so a lot of people have they have this fondness for Jeff Jarrett. And I think in that environment, he'd be good for that. I also think that regardless of cause and effect, you can say that Jeff Jarrett, when he was in charge of events for WWE, live event business went up. And AEW is about to do, we heard last week that they were about to venture into some overseas promoting, and Jeff Jarrett has a lot of experience with that, and he'd be the guy to have on board when you start running these UK shows. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
I just don't know that I want to see him on screen. That's all.
You're just hoping that he has more of a behind the scenes role than an on TV role going forward.
That's it. That's all. I mean, sure, give him his flowers, I guess, if that's what he's here after. We had a John Moxley, William Regal promo. Graham B asks, he says, so how do we get to coffin drop through a guitar?
Yes.
Oh,
to
they
see
should
it.
do a coffin match, but the coffin is shaped like a guitar.
Yes. That's the move. That's the move for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be good.
Make me Booker.
Make that happen.
But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, we had the Moxley promo. This was where I'll agree with you on the crowd. I thought that the crowd was like, yeah, Moxley, we love Moxley. But I felt like they weren't necessarily giving him much as far as reactions to the things he was saying here. And I loved everything Moxley was saying here. And again, it was another one of those promos to keep hold on, I got a message. But it was another one of those to remind us that MJF says a lot of things, but has he necessarily proved a lot of things? And Moxley basically came back at him. And he talked about, you call yourself the devil. Well, I know the devil, and you are not the devil. And somebody in the crowd yelled, Vince McMahon! And I thought that was actually quite funny.
Oh my gosh.
So no, I thought the promo worked. I thought everything in the promo was good and was working. I thought the crowd wasn't necessarily giving him what he was looking for out of it. But no, I don't know. Moxley's always good on the mic, and I think this was a much more defined Moxley. He told the story of the first time he encountered Regal, and then the second time he encountered Regal and how he gave it back to him, and that's how they became close. Again, I'm still looking forward to the match. I think this build-up probably could have used MJF being on TV, but for the most part, I am looking forward to what the outcome of Full Gear ends up being. It has to be MJF winning, cool. Right?
Oh yeah, no, I fully believe that MJF is winning the title, and even though it was overshadowed the last time they had a match at that All Out where Matt Hardy Humpty Dumpty to himself, I still remember really liking that match.
It's very good, and
so it's very promising that this match will also kick ass.
Yeah, and honestly, MJF is, I'd say, like, I think the pandemic did a lot for MJF, and I say this is a big fan of the work MJF does on screen. I think So when you look back at early MJF stuff, when he first got in front of those early AEW crowds, a lot of his stuff is very paint by numbers heel stuff, where he's just like, look at these nerds. Your football team sucks. And like he delivered it well, but it was all just very basic heel stuff. And I did think that the pandemic did give MJF a chance to expand upon what he brings to the table. I liked it a lot, actually. To the point of where when he gets back in front of crowds, I thought we saw a much more mature heel that had a lot more depth than he had initially.
Yeah, they definitely really fleshed out his characterization. I love when they go to his hometown and it's suddenly Bizarro Land AEW where everyone's cheering for him. Even though a lot of people are cheering for him in other places lately too. But yeah, they've really expanded his character in a great way.
So we then saw a fairly short affair. I think it only went like 7 minutes, but it was Sky Blue. And just in case people don't know, I'm like doing these shows off the top of my head as I remember them. But I had
notes.
I had them open, but I had to close everything out to fix the robotic issue. So not anymore. No. But we did see Sky Blue go 1-on-1 with the number one contender for the AEW Interim Women's World Championship. It was Sky Blue accompanied by Toni Storm. She took on Jamie Hayter. And I loved the finishing sequence of this match. I thought it was probably one of the best ways to get to that ripcord lariat.
Yeah. And I also think it's interesting because it's obvious that Jamie Hayter is so over right now. Mm-hmm. Like, I think she's currently probably the favorite to, be the next Women's World Championship title holder. But Sky Blue got a lot of offense in this match. She was like kicking Jamie's ass for a little bit. But yeah, also just shows how badass Jamie is by kind of having a sudden turnaround victory at the end of this match.
Yeah. And I again, in the I think Sky Blue is one of those names that could end up getting a little bit of a Jamie Hayter type of boost by fans who get behind her. Just, Jamie Hayter got over via the fans. The fact is, like, when Jamie Hayter first showed up in 2019, fans definitely weren't into her. When she showed up, when she returned in 2021 and started teaming up with Brit, people were like, who the hell is this? Look at this wannabe Becky Lynch. Like, that was the thing people were talking about on Twitter. But then she
came back with that new look. I remember she did her entrance for the first time when she came back, and like just me sitting there, I was like, oh, who the hell is this? Like, holy shit, this is a star right here. Oh my God.
I think that the way she was able to get over organically with the fans is going to go a long way with because I think she's winning. I think she's winning at Full Gear. And then, but I could see Sky Blue also pulling that off because I think fans really want to like her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think Sky Blue is also a big fan favorite.
And finally, in the main event, 2 out of 3 falls. Bryan Danielson took on Sammy Guevara.
This was very good.
This was a hoot.
Yeah, this was, yeah. I thought it took a little bit for it to kind of wind up, but by the time they got to the second half of this match, it was all out. It was just they were going for it.
The third fall of this match was excellent stuff. Bryan Danielson is the greatest of all time. And
that the cutter being countered by the midair Bisaiko knee like popped me so big. Like that was incredible.
Yeah. I have questions. So my first question for you. So when I make a statement like Bryan Danielson is the GOAT, now I say that having had years and years of experience with Bryan Danielson. Goes back, it's a 17-year relationship, me and Bryan Danielson, as far as my fandom is concerned. My question for you is, as somebody who's only been watching the last few years, does that statement resonate with you the way it does? Oh, look, it fucking does! I love it!
This is a
for people listening on audio, by the way, he lifted a Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan cup.
This is a like early 2010s era Daniel Bryan cup, by the way. This is like from when I was first watching wrestling. Yeah, I was very like Daniel Bryan and CM Punk were like my 2 favorite wrestlers when I initially started watching wrestling in like 2012.
Okay.
So big Bryan Daniel Bryan fan over here.
Well, Joe says, I was there last night. The last part of this match was absolutely incredible. Again, nobody wrestles like Bryan Danielson, and it's just my favorite thing to watch. And I feel like in that last stretch when we got the third fall, of course, we had the first fall that Bryan Danielson won via disqualification. And then Sammy then used that to his advantage to beat and bloody Bryan Danielson to pin him for the second fall. And then the third fall, Bryan's just magnificent, triumphant comeback.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So good.
I loved it. I had so much fun with this. And Bryan, I know some people were mad about Sammy and his essential no-sell of the Bisaiko knee.
I think that's just his style.
I think, like, here's the thing. That's something to easily dwell on. I don't need to. And you know why I don't need to? Because I had fucking fun with this match, and I don't fucking care. Like, I would care in some more egregious situations where where I don't know, because I was just talking last week, and I noted to actually this was on After the Week with me and Denise. I had made a point of how no selling to me can be great when it's effective. This wasn't one of those cases where I thought it was effective. I just honestly didn't even notice till I got on Twitter. To be
Neither
honest,
did I. Yeah, it wasn't really something I was. It wasn't really something I was offended by, or like even really noticed at the time. It just
Right.
kind of it felt like, because the match was really the picking up momentum at that point. So I just thought it was matching momentum.
Yeah, so I mean the stretch, for people who don't recall, it was that Sammy has Bryan on his shoulders for a GTAH, and then Bryan slips off of the shoulders, runs, hits the ropes, hits the Busaiku knee, and then he looks around to the crowd. He grabs Sammy's hands like he's going to start doing the stomps to the head, and Sammy then counters into a I don't know, kind of a flipping springboard cutter onto Bryan, and then goes to the top rope to attempt a swanton. Bryan gets the knees up and locks in the label lock, and then traps Sammy's arm. He taps. The thing people were upset about was how quickly Sammy went from having taken the knee to being essentially springy enough to hit that flipping cutter, and wasn't really selling on his way up to the top rope. I was so into the match at that stage, I didn't even fucking care. Because I was just like, no, this is great. It's
cool stuff. Cool stuff is happening.
All of this, yeah. And then I jumped on Twitter, and then I'm like, okay. So yeah, match ends with Bryan. He's got the victory. And it's that time of the show, folks. How are the ratings? So.
Oh. I forgot you did this.
That's right. AEW Dynamite. Of course, it's Day After Dynamite. We got to talk about all the Day After Dynamite stuff. AEW Dynamite was number 6. And my question is, why was it number 6? I have a feeling. I mean, I have my feelings. It was a lot of news coverage, and it was.
Is that average? Where does it average, would you say?
It's usually in the top 5, sometimes even 1 or 2. But of course, the top 5 shows were 2 NBA games and then news shows. And the show did 930,000 viewers, and that was good for a 0.32 rating. So it was up from last week still. But that's it. Again, this is a fairly unremarkable rating that you can very much chalk up to. Matter of fact, as is being pointed out, it's still up from last year. They are up from November of 2021, which was that weird period where they were airing live on the West Coast rather than on a delay, and that tends to harm Dynamite numbers and they had to do that for November and December before they went back to the tape delay, because that would be 5 p.m. West Coast time, which is when people are just getting off of work. So, yeah, it was still in the top 10, but it was defeated by election coverage and NBA games. We know it's going to get defeated by NBA games every week, but the election
that's
coverage,
just the nature of TV.
Yeah.
Sports dominates all.
This was a very middling show, much like last week. I didn't hate it. There was stuff on here that wasn't for me, and there was stuff that I thought wasn't clicking. I get the concerns about this being so close to Full Gear and some people not feeling as hyped for Full Gear. I think the Full Gear card is coming around. I think that, like, when you look at it top to bottom, it's looking like a good card. And I think matches will probably deliver. But and
we still have a go-home show, right?
Yeah, there's still a go-home show.
So
there's next week. And I can see multiple matches being added. I also hear that some of the Rampage matches are slaps. I hear that the Bandito and Roosh match kills it.
It sounds good. Yeah.
Now
it sounds like it would be cool.
we've seen that before. But I hear that it delivers on all fronts. So definitely look forward to that on Rampage. And my guess is because there's 8 matches officially on the card right now, right? Or is it 9? 9 matches officially. Let me look up Full Gear's Wikipedia. I guess with what gets announced on Rampage tomorrow, it's 9 matches officially on the card, and I expect that 2 more get added. So my guess is it'll end up being 11 by the time the show rolls around.
Love a big pay-per-view.
Yes. Another big pay-per-view, another big multi-hour thing that I will be in attendance for.
Awesome.
And that'll actually complete them. I was at every AEW pay-per-view this year. After Full Gear, I will have made it to every single one of them, which is just insanity. That made it to multiple WWE pay-per-views as well this year. Mm-hmm. Starting with the Rumble and everything. But no, for those keeping track, every single media scrum, you heard my voice afterward.
Yeah.
And technically, hold on, let me think about this, because I was also at. Okay, here's how I'll put it. Tony, you've only not seen me at one media scrum this year, and that was Death Before Dishonor. But other than that, all of the Tony Khan media scrums, you've seen me sitting somewhere close to the front. So I'll be there again. Me and Denise will be there in Share Delaware, and lots of other folks are going to be in the vicinity. If you're going to be at Full Gear, hit me up, let me know. I don't know. I know there's going to be things people are going to be doing around the area, so hit me up if you're in the area. Other than that, folks, Noah, give some plugs. You need more followers. I know you're not big on Twitter, but you should.
I post occasionally over there. Yeah, I'm at Oozing Neon.
Not Twitter sucks, honestly. This app is on it. Look, the shit is literally about to
implode.
It's gonna implode, and 2023 Twitter is going to be really interesting. And when we look back at this time period, so I don't blame you. But either way, plug everything. Do the thing.
Yeah.
Floor is yours.
Oozing Neon on Twitter. I'm on TikTok. I haven't really posted anything there, but I should get on the TikTok. That's where the kids are. That's where the traffic is. My wife is on TikTok, but yeah, Instagram, I guess. I am one of the Fatal Four of RBR. Wearing the shirt there. That's every Wednesday night after Dynamite, but in a different way. That this is After Dynamite.
A much different way.
And yeah, we'll be live on Twitch. I think Monday night after Raw, doing some tier maker. We're gonna tier out Thanksgiving food, so that'll be fun. And yeah,
okay,
and if you're,
I have one question about that. Going back to my old RBR days, because we used to have debates about this. Cranberry sauce. Where do you sit? Do you prefer chunks of cranberry, or do you prefer the gelatin where you just slice and have a little round disc on your plate?
So I feel like it goes back to the way your mom makes it, right? So, or just whoever is in charge of your family, however they make it. My mom made it fresh, so I am definitely in the camp of fresh sauce with chunks. I will settle for jelly out of a can, but it is not the preferred delivery method of that for me personally.
Of course. Yeah, I'm glad. But just so you know, this was an RBR debate, and it really came down to Eric Brady, who is very high on simply having canned cranberry sauce and not the shit that people bring. So I'm curious how that goes. You guys enjoy doing the Thanksgiving foods. RBR Wrestling can be found at rbrwrestling.com. Again, that's a show I hosted for many, many years. I hosted that show for 16 consecutive years, 2005 until September of 2021. And one of the neat things that I prided myself on in not just hosting RBR, but I ran RBR. It was my show for a long time, for the entire time, is that I wanted to make sure that everything that RBR ever did remained available. And that is still true to this day. That literally, if you go to rbrwrestling.com, I'm pretty sure first episode that I ever did, first podcast I ever did, June 18th, 2005, episode 1. We're talking about the 2005 draft. You can hear 17-year-old me talking about Monday Night Raw.
How scary is that for you?
I went back just like 2 weeks ago and listened to an episode from like 2010, and I'm like, what the fuck was I talking about?
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck is this shit? And
Who is this little jerk?
I do this all the time. I listen to episodes from like 2006, and I'm like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Why did I put this on the internet? But you know what? You can see. But the thing I like about it is that my growth as a person is out there publicly, and you can listen to every single episode I ever did. And so I am glad to have passed the baton to guys who have kept it going, that have kept the RBR neighborhood flowing. I still peek in on the Facebook group. I still see you guys doing your thing. I'm a part of the Discord, so I see.
Yeah, we have fun in the Discord.
Yeah,
the Discord is a good time.
I see all that stuff, and so I'm really glad that a thing that I dedicated a lot of my time and energy to, that was really hard to walk away from, is still going strong. So Noah, I was happy to bring you on this show and to have you kind of make your Fightful debut. Worried about your Twitter mentions right now. But either way, thank you, Noah. I appreciate you. Folks, if you are subscribed to Fightful Select, jump on over there right now, because we are about to begin Ask Grapsody, literally right now. So that means I have to say that that's it for this edition of Day After Dynamite. Thanks for being here. For Noah, I'm Will Washington. I will see you next time. Have a great day. Peace. FightfulSelect.com. Ask Grapsody right now.